Tens of thousands of refugees continue to stream into and across Europe. And this past week saw crowds of them confronted by police and hit with tear gas as they tried to cross into Macedonia from Greece. We want to look at refugees who have already reached their destination, Germany, and the implications for the media there. For many German news outlets, the refugees are not just a big story. There are more than 1 million of them, so they're a new market. And public broadcast networks, private channels, newspapers of varying political stripes, NGOs, even tech companies have all tailored some of their content, delivering it in Arabic to this new audience. The results have been, as one might expect, slightly hit and miss. And that's inspired a small group of refugees to start reporting for themselves, publishing a monthly newspaper that aims to get past the stereotypes and the cultural divide. The Listening Post's Phillips now from Berlin on the refugee story in Germany, the people doing the reporting, and the story in Cologne that wasn't covered, at least not initially.
Bis Ende Juli 218.000 Menschen gestellt.
Der Ton in der Flüchtlingskrise wird zunehmend schärfer.
For the German media right now, there is no bigger story.
Mehr Ängste. Kann der Flüchtlingszustrom nach Deutschland bewältigt werden? Kanzlerin verliert an Zustimmung.
For the past year, the issue of migration and refugees has been the central issue in German mass media. It is very much about the refugees and migrants. Germans talking about them, discussing the issue, but very few refugees and migrants are actually heard.
We talk a lot about ourselves when we refer to refugees. So it's a lot about who we are, who we want to be, and about how our values in Germany shift.
Wir erleben einen tiefen Einschnitt in dieses Land. Die Frage ist, ob der Einschnitt tiefer sein wird als beispielsweise die Wiedervereinigung.
So it's a lot of, let's say, self-reflection of Germany, of German society, of German people.
The influx of over 1 million refugees has spawned a new genre of output in the German media. Efforts include a video podcast series featuring helpful hints from a young journalist whose parents fled the Vietnam War. Various Arabic inserts in some of the most widely read newspapers like Bild and Zeit. A phone app which its creators call the Guide for Your First Weeks in Germany. And most recently, Start FM, an NGO-backed project bidding to put a refugee-led radio station on the air in Berlin and Brandenburg. But the one that's most visible is Marhaba, or Welcome, hosted by Konstantin Schreiber, a weekly show that broadcasts on NTV in German and Arabic.
I really remember very well when we started our show on 25th of September. The reaction was overwhelming from media people, from refugees inside Germany, outside Germany, just because that was something unique. A program for refugees in Arabic within Germany. The initial idea was that we talk about, for example, our constitution, our clothes, our history, our food.
نحن الألمان كما يقال نحب أكل اللحوم بكثرة كنقائق مثلا أو لحم الخنزير المشوي. ونحن نحب أن نشرب مع ذلك البيرة.
So that we would give refugees an impression about what we think is pivotal for starting a life in Germany.
I felt it was more like a PR kind of thing. When you watch these episodes, I feel it's a very top-down approach.
من الواضح أن الحياة في ألمانيا مختلفة جدا عما تعودتم عليه في بلادكم. المتعة ورخاء وتعايش مشترك أمور لا يعرفها الكثيرون.
It has this paradigm or even ideology of assimilation towards refugees. So please do this, don't do this. It's very much focusing on how you are as backward and how we are as kind of civilized, and please become like us.
The hundreds, sometimes thousands of refugees that arrive here every week all need information. And over the past few months, some mainstream media players like ARD, Deutsche Welle and NTV have all tried to adapt parts of their output to this new audience. But there's still a cultural divide that needs to be bridged. And some refugees are now starting media outlets of their own, providing people like themselves with what they need to know.
Rami al-Ashek, a Syrian-Palestinian refugee who arrived in Germany 18 months ago, now edits a refugee-run monthly newspaper from his apartment in Cologne called Abwab, or doors.
At Abweb, we're trying to open the doors for everyone from refugees to writers to even Germans who wish to write for a refugee audience. At the beginning of every month, I get in touch with people, and there's a group that works as a communications hub. Our newsroom is in Paris, our graphic designer is based in Turkey. We usually get in touch over Skype, phone, and Facebook, and discuss a variety of topics. And then we showcase them to the editorial committee and decide what will be included and what will be discarded. This has made Abweb a newspaper by refugees for refugees.
I follow the news of Syria, my country, but at the same time, we're also interested in knowing what's happening here in Germany. We live here, so we have to know the country's news.
I follow it on Facebook. They cover events in Germany, whether they are related to us as refugees here in Germany or not.
I like it a lot because it's the only way that new refugees can know the news, the rules around us, the new regulations happening in Germany.
And then one day, the media fell silent. Attacks against German women on New Year's Eve in Cologne, rumoured to be by groups of men of North African or Arab descent, went largely unreported for days, amid fears that coverage would stoke anti-immigrant sentiment. ZDF, one of Germany's public broadcasters, was forced to apologise for not reporting on the story until 4 days later. The publicly funded Deutsche Welle Arabic is Germany's voice that broadcasts to the Arab world, but it has recently been granted a 12-month license to transmit inside the country to its new audience in their language. It was one of the first networks to cover the incidents.
We were quite early, much earlier than the national broadcasters, because we got more information and we are more sensitive to things like this. We have people from 60 nations working for us, and they have completely different sources. We try to give the whole picture.
Some criticized that we were waiting, I think, for a week or so, but from my point of view, I would say it was correct, because what we know about the incident changed from day to day. I went to the Lageso, which is one of the main reception places in Berlin for Syrian refugees. I talked to some of them there. I also had one of them on my show. It was just my ambition to point out that if the law and the rules that we have, they are not obliged by refugees that are living in our country, they are actually harming themselves most.
Our coverage was rather different. While mass media was focusing on the background of the attackers, we focused on the crime itself and the victims. We also covered the reactions of Syrians and Arabs on the incident, and the issue of harassment, whether it's a cultural thing or a crime that goes unpunished in our communities. So all in all, we tried to cover the story in a different way that sheds light on uncovered angles.
Germany is a country that bears the weight of its own troubled history. The story of its past is the inescapable context for the reporting of news stories like the refugee influx. And even though not all of the new news content tailored for the new arrivals hits the mark, there is a lot of it. And that says a lot about how Germany has changed and keeps changing.
There has been a general consensus that Germany is in fact a country of immigration. So there's also a general consensus that we have to avoid the mistakes that were made in the past. There have been many efforts by all kinds of media to give more insight and a better understanding to the situation.
The main aim, of course, is to integrate. They have to learn German. We don't want a ghetto channel in Arabic in Germany. That doesn't make sense for any of us, and it's not our job. I don't believe in so much power of the media, but I believe in that we can fill in a little bit or help a little bit, a very small step to better integration of refugees, yes.